So the movie kicks off by showing this guy, and he's in pretty bad shape, all covered in wounds. He's enjoying a cigarette. Then he pulls a can of meat out of his jacket, which turns out to be for a cat he also pulls out from inside his jacket. It looks like he's being interrogated by a couple of police officers, and they're asking him who he really is. And this is the movie, Nobody. Going back in time a bit, we get introduced to who this man was before all this. His name is Hutch Mansell.
Me?
And it's pretty clear he's just a regular dad. He enjoys his daily routine just like most fathers, starting with a workout in the morning, making breakfast for his kids, taking out the trash, going to the office, and then coming home in the evening. But then, one night, a break-in happens at his house. Hutch, realizing what's going on, grabs a golf club and tries to call the police. But he gets discovered. The thief takes a few dollars and forces him to hand over the watch he's wearing. Hutch's oldest son, Blake, is pretty brave. From behind, he manages to tackle one of the robbers. Hutch, who looked like he was about to jump in and help his son, suddenly stops and instead tells his son to let the thief go.
What the fuck, Dad?
A little while later, the police show up. And based on his son's story, one of the cops even suggests Hutch was a bit of a coward for not daring to swing the golf club he was holding. He just stood there. On the other side of things, you can see his wife is a little disappointed, and it happens that their marriage has been a little strained for a while. The next morning at breakfast, it's really obvious how his son is still so disappointed about what happened the night before. And the news about the incident, well, it's already spread to some relatives. It starts with his neighbor who begins to belittle and mock Hutch right in front of his own son.
Exercise.
Oh, and Hutch works as an auditor at a manufacturing company owned by his father-in-law. While at work, his brother-in-law Charlie comes by, and again, Hutch has to deal with unpleasant remarks about the incident. He's also handed a gun, which is then offered to Hutch for self-defense. But Hutch feels he doesn't need it and instead puts the gun in the office refrigerator. Back in his workspace, you can see Hutch can't focus. He keeps remembering a tattoo on the robber's arm, so he decides to lock his door and turns on a radio, which, it turns out, connects him to an acquaintance whose name isn't mentioned. This contact asks him to explain what happened last night. Hutch begins his story describing the culprits with incredible detail, from their estimated age and gender to their motives, all based on intuition, their voices, and even the type of weapon they used. And it turns out the reason Hutch didn't fight back was that he saw clearly that the gun the robber was using, well, it had no bullets in it at all. Besides, what they stole wasn't much. After work that day, Hutch doesn't go straight home. He takes the time to visit his elderly father in a nursing home. Seeing his son's current state, his father gives him some advice, telling him to remember who he used to be. Okay, so when he gets home, his little daughter, the only one who still seems to respect Hutch, is looking down and asks about her little cat-themed bracelet, which has been missing since last night. She had put it in the same bowl where the robbers took the money. Hutch, without saying a word, leaves the house and goes back to his father's place. There, he grabs a jacket, a gun, money, and his father's old ID with the name FBI written on it. That night, he drives around to various tattoo shops, pretending to be an FBI agent to investigate. None of them give him the information he wants, until, at one place, an old veteran realizes Hutch is lying. But then, this same guy happens to see a tattoo on Hutch's wrist that makes him instantly terrified, and he runs off to hide.
Thank you for your service.
Hutch gets the address of the culprits and immediately goes into action. Emerging from the shadows, he confronts the robbers, a young husband and wife. While brandishing his weapon, an emotional Hutch demands his watch, and most importantly, his daughter's cat bracelet back. He's about to pull the trigger, but stops when he hears a baby crying from another room. It turns out the couple has a baby with health problems, which was likely the reason they were stealing. Hutch, still disappointed that he couldn't unleash his anger, goes home empty-handed. On the way, his bus stops because a car has blocked the road after hitting a barrier. 5 rowdy, half-drunk thugs get out of the car and arrogantly board the bus, starting to harass the other passengers. Hutch just gets this big smile on his face, seeing this as some kind of gift from God to replace the outlet for his anger he just missed.
This girl's gonna get home safe tonight.
Since Hutch hasn't been in action for a long time, he takes a few punches at first, and even gets stabbed with a knife. But as the fight goes on, his movements get sharper and he brutally takes down all 5 of the arrogant thugs. These thugs had no idea they were about to get completely destroyed by a middle-aged dad. When he gets home, his wife Rebecca finds him covered in wounds. While she's patching him up, Hutch tries to reminisce about their past, which now feels so distant. Rebecca herself doesn't say anything. From this, we understand that Rebecca knows, at least a little bit, about Hutch's past. Meanwhile, the film introduces a Russian man, about Hutch's age. He enters a club and joyfully dances with the performers. This man is Yulian Kuznetsov. Behind his relaxed demeanor, he's actually the man trusted to guard something called the Obshak, which manages laundered funds for major Russian mafias in America. A member of the Obshak comments on Yulian's style, saying he should maintain a more dignified presence like a typical mafioso. Yulian doesn't respond with words, but he immediately demonstrates a pretty brutal act. It turns out Yulian's younger brother, Teddy, was one of the 5 thugs Hutch sent to the hospital. In a mix of tears and anger, Yulian starts investigating how his brother ended up in this state. One of the other thugs shows him Hutch's bus pass, which he apparently found after the fight. Hutch, meanwhile, is enjoying breakfast with his family. He looks more confident and energized after releasing his anger yesterday.
Morning. Hutch here. Last night.
But then, the person he usually talks to on the radio suddenly calls him on his home phone. He warns Hutch about Yulian coming for him because of what he did. More specifically, he tells Hutch to come to a barbershop after work. That evening, at the barbershop, a man, unnamed, but seems like an old acquaintance of Hutch's, gives him a file with detailed information on Yulian and an explanation of the Obshak. At the same time, Yulian, with the help of his skilled hacker, gets Hutch's address, including his father's. But besides that, he can't find anything else, as if it's all been hidden. The hacker is finally forced to ask a contact at the Pentagon to access the confidential file for Hutch Mansell. On the Pentagon server, the file on Hutch Mansell is still highly classified, so much so that the contact has to go to a special section of the archives. After learning about Hutch's background, the hacker is terrified and tells Yulian to never contact him again.
Come out, no need to pay. Good luck.
That night, while Hutch is having dinner with his family, Yulian's men show up, heavily armed. He immediately tells his wife and kids to hide in the basement, in a room which it turns out Hutch had hidden from his family all along. It has a sophisticated locking system. Hutch begins his counterattack by cutting the power to his house. He takes out the intruders one by one as they enter the house. After a struggle, Hutch is knocked unconscious and handcuffed in the trunk of a vehicle. They don't kill him right away because Yulian wants him alive. On the way, Hutch wakes up, breaks his own thumb to escape the handcuffs, grabs a fire extinguisher, breaks through the back seat and sprays the contents, causing the car to crash. As Hutch sits for a moment to rest, he casually starts a conversation with one of the dying mafia members. He gets asked who he really is. From there, Hutch hurries back home, and he makes sure to call his father about the trouble he's in, which could affect him too. After cleaning up, Hutch reopens the basement door. His wife and son can only stare in shock at the number of bodies Hutch has taken care of. He's forced to tell his wife to take the children and leave until the problem is solved. Hutch then starts cleaning up. You see him pull out a box that's been hidden all this time, filled with gold bars and a lot of money. While enjoying some whiskey and classical music, which he brings down to the basement, Hutch starts to tell a story. A long time ago, there was a man named Alan who stole $3 million from the government. Hutch was sent to eliminate him. In his final moments, Alan begged for a chance, saying he regretted everything and asked for a second chance. Hutch granted it. A year later, Hutch checked up on Alan and found his life had completely changed. He looked incredibly happy with his simple family. Seeing that, Hutch suddenly wanted what Alan had. He resigned from his job, which at first seemed impossible, but as we've seen, he was quite successful in leaving his past behind, even though he always believed a day like this would come. In the middle of his story, Hutch happens to look under the sofa and sees his daughter's cat bracelet. It turns out it was never stolen, just misplaced under the couch. The very thing that triggered all his rage.
Fun fact, bone burns to ash at 1500 degrees.
Well, it's too late now. Hutch then pulls out a vinyl record, and when he plays it, it triggers a fire that engulfs the entire room. This basement was designed to multiply heat during a fire, enough to turn human bones to dust. Leaving the house, Hutch steals his show-off neighbor's car and rushes to meet his father-in-law. At the same time, two large men sneak up on Hutch's father, who is sleeping. These two mafia guys are too relaxed. They have no idea this old man is even more ruthless than Hutch. At the factory, Hutch lays out all the gold bars he had stored as an offer to buy the company, which his father-in-law had wanted to sell for a while anyway. The amount is fantastic, and his father-in-law agrees immediately. However, his son Charlie disagrees and tries to act tough, even trying to fight Hutch. The next day, Hutch closes the factory, and, using only the raw materials available, he builds and sets up various traps around the facility. After setting the traps, the mysterious person who usually contacts Hutch gets in touch again. He warns him to hold back and avoid more trouble, or everything he's built will be for nothing. But Hutch has already made up his mind. From their conversation, we learn that this mysterious person is actually Hutch's brother Harry, who was in a photo we saw earlier. That night, Hutch goes to the Shack. This time, he doesn't come empty-handed.
Maybe. What say you and I have a moment?
Hutch is fully armed. The tight security there seems like just a game to him. We last see him burning all of the Shack's assets, including various paintings Julian loved, worth tens of millions, except for one he quite liked and took home. Here we realize just how dangerous Hutch is when fighting with weapons. He manages to slaughter everyone without a single scratch. In the middle of the night, while Julian is happily singing at his favorite club, it turns out one of the audience members is Hutch, casually enjoying a steak. After burning all the Shack's assets, he shows up with a bomb in his hand, successfully forcing Julian to negotiate an end to their conflict. Julian is, of course, furious when he finds out that, at that very moment, all of the Shack's assets are going up in flames. Hutch warns Julian to stop fighting back, or he will suffer even more. He then leaves the club casually and gets into his car, hoping Julian will accept his offer. But the opposite happens. Hutch intentionally lures Julian and all his men to the factory area. As he gets out of the car, he gets shot. In the midst of a hail of bullets, his brother Harry, who is a sniper, suddenly appears along with their father, saving Hutch. The two old guys look thrilled to be firing shotguns again. Once they get inside, the father talks about how he tried to enjoy retirement but found himself missing times like these, when the three of them are back in action. From this, we understand that Hutch, his brother, and his father were likely part of a former elite special forces unit, possibly with the FBI. Julian, after regaining consciousness, rejoins the fight and manages to injure Harry. Although now it's only Julian left, the trio of assassins is out of bullets. Hutch then pulls out a bomb he had saved and attaches it to a glass shield. In a reckless move, he manages to finish off Julian just before the police arrive at the scene. Harry and his dad say their goodbyes. Hutch doesn't forget to thank them for their much-needed help. Hutch then tries to call his wife, but she doesn't answer. He ends up leaving a voicemail, apologizing and thanking her for the chance she gave him all those years. He also begs for another chance to start everything over from scratch, and now, we are finally back at the beginning of the movie, which explains why Hutch was covered in wounds. When asked about who he is, Hutch just answers. A moment later, the two police officers interrogating him get a special call with an order to release Hutch, which only leaves them more stunned. So, who exactly was the man they were interrogating? Sometime later, we see Hutch and his wife looking at a house they plan to live in. While they're happily looking around, the real estate agent gets a mysterious phone call from someone who is actually looking for Hutch. After hanging up, the couple asks the most important question before buying a house. And with that, the film ends. In an end credits scene, there's actually an extra bit where Harry and Hutch's dad are on a road trip with a vehicle full of weapons. It's possible this movie might have a sequel. We'll just have to wait and see, and hopefully, it will be even more exciting. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next film recap. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe.